In this video, we're going to be talking about social costs and benefits. The first subtopic of this video is how the decisions of firms can affect others. Let's first talk about externalities. When talking about externalities in economics, there are both positive and negative. A negative externality imposes an external cost on other people and organizations that did not agree to the action that caused it. It will reduce satisfaction and lower economic welfare. Also, because most private sector firms are motivated to make a profit, sometimes they may overlook any negative externalities their resource allocation decisions may cause. A positive externality produces external benefits for other people and organizations that were not involved in the decision or action that created it. An external benefit is a benefit enjoyed by another party without the party having paid for it. Positive externalities are therefore good things to have and encouraged. They increase satisfaction and improve economic welfare. To sum it up, external benefits are advantages society receives due to use of a certain good or service, and external costs are disadvantages society receives due to use of a certain good or service. Private benefit and costs both affect businesses and consumers when producing or consuming a good. The difference is private benefit benefits the business or consumer, and private costs cost the business or consumer. Social cost is equivalent to private costs plus external costs. Social benefits is equivalent to private benefits plus external benefits. These are some examples of external and private costs and benefits. In this situation, it's about wind farms. In the private cost, we could see the cost that it takes for the business, along with the private benefits. In the external costs and benefits, we could see how it affects the environment and other things that's besides the business.
This is a demand curve with external costs. If social costs are not accounted for, price is too low to cover all costs, and hence quantity produced is unnecessarily high, because producers of the good and their customers are essentially underpaying the total real factors of production.
A good that is economic is a good with some benefit to society and an opportunity cost. It can include both private and public goods. When the social cost is greater than the social benefit of a product, that product is uneconomic. But if the social benefit is greater than the social cost, the product is economic. Next is market failure and government intervention. First is how the market can fail. Market failure occurs when the market mechanism fails to allocate scarce resources efficiently. This is because private sector firms will only decide what, how, and for whom to produce by considering their own private costs, benefits, and profits. Government intervention may be required to ensure that firms take account of the external costs and benefits, their decision and action. Next is laws and regulations. Laws and regulations can be introduced by governments to ban or control activities that create serious negative externalities and external costs. For example, many countries have introduced anti-pollution laws to control the contamination of land and the release of untreated waste and chemicals into water supplies and into the air. Next is taxation. If market prices fail to reflect the external cost of a productive activity, then it may be possible to impose a tax on product prices to make sure they do. Raising the prices of products that are themselves harmful, such as cigarettes, or outputs of a production process that creates significant external costs, should reduce consumer demand for those products and make them less profitable for private sector firms to produce. Cars and petrols are also taxed in many countries to reduce demand for large vehicles and encourage producers to develop and produce greener alternatives.
So, this is an example of the incidence of a tax on cigarettes. If a government puts a £1 tax on each packet of cigarettes, the legal incidence is on the cigarette smoker. However, the local market may have many sellers and be highly competitive. This means that a retailer, fearing they will lose sales, may decide to put up the price by only 50p and pay the balance of 50p to the government themselves. In this case, the economic incidence is shared because both are worse off. The smoker is worse off because of the price increase of 20p, and the seller is worse off because 10p must come out of their revenue to pay the government.
Next are subsides. Private sector firms are not interested in producing external benefits for others because they are not paid for them. A subsidy is a payment of money given by a government to a firm to offset or reduce production costs of production. It's made by the government to encourage producers to produce goods and services that result in external benefits. Some industries produce large external benefits. By taking over the ownership and running of a whole industry, a government can allow nationalized industries to act in the public interest. For example, In many countries, bus and train services are nationalized and run by a public corporation. Bus and train fares may be kept low to encourage people to use these services for travel instead of using their cars that may otherwise cause traffic congestion and harmful exhaust fumes and air pollutants.
In the diagram, the subsidy per unit is A to B, and the new quantity consumed is Q1. However, the price the consumer pays does not fall by the full amount of the subsidy. Instead, it falls from P to P1. Hence, although the intention of the subsidy may be to reduce the price to the consumer by the full amount of the subsidy, the producer gets some of the benefit in terms of extra revenue that they can keep. The gain to the consumer is P to P1 per unit, and the whole gain to the customer is the area PFBP1. The gain to the producer is C to P per unit, and the total gain to the producer is CAFP. The overall cost of the subsidy to the university is the area CAPP1.
Next is government policy and conflicts of interest. Taxes, subsidies, laws, and regulations can also be used, not just to influence the production decisions of firms, but also the decisions of consumers where these may have external costs and benefits. For example, these may include taxes on cigarettes, free or subsidized vaccinations against infectious diseases, and regulating such as speed limits on roads and a ban on smoking. In deciding to introduce policies to control firms and consumers to reduce the harmful impacts their decisions may have on others and the environment, a government may simply create other conflicts of interest. Opportunity costs revisited. Because of scarcity, we must choose what to do with scarce resources, and in choosing one, we must give up another. The benefit of the next best alternative given up is known as the opportunity costs. The opportunity costs are the benefit of the next best alternative foregone, therefore always includes any external costs that occur. How consumers' decisions can affect others. To understand more, consider this following example. A girl is looking forward to her holiday in a foreign country. However, before she can go, she must protect herself from some of the diseases she may catch in that country. She is seen having a vaccination. This protects a great many other people because if the girl had caught a disease, she would pass it on to the others when she returned from her holiday. Her decision of having a vaccination therefore protected the rest of society from the disease. The consumption has resulted in an external benefit. Consumers' decisions can either affect external costs or external benefit to other people. But it isn't only people living nearby who has an impact, but on the environment and all over the world, and not just on today's society, but on future generations for years to come. Conservation or commercialization. When using too much natural resources through the economic activities of production, consumption, and exchange, this is when resource depletion takes place. Many natural resources such as crude oil and iron ore are non-renewable, meaning they are not replaced as they are used up. Conservationists argue we must slow the pace at which we consume resources for the following reasons. There are many major effects to animals, such as many animals being hunted into or close to extinction, and many dying out due to deforestation, which destroys their habitat and clears landed trees for farming. And also overfishing has depleted fish stocks and harmed other marine bird and animal populations. This hasn't only affected animals but humans and our environment as well. Some examples are oil spills and factories dumping of waste into rivers and the sea. This has destroyed the marine habitat in many areas and contaminated the food chain for humans. Clean water and clean air are in short supply in an increasing number of areas, and global warming is already having a dramatic effect on the planet, and climate change is causing more violent storms, droughts, and floods. Arguments for and against conservation. Conservation and protection of environment and wildlife involves choice and inevitably gives rise to conflict. It is difficult to avoid using our opinions. The problem is that opinions differ because what is thought to be fair and right for one person or group of people may not be so for another. Economics is not concerned with this fact or with people's opinions. As economists, we cannot answer whether protecting the environment is more important than reducing poverty, but we can analyze the implications of using resources in these different ways and the economic effects of different actions undertaken by consumers, firms, or governments.
Further increase in the rate of sales tax will cause unemployment. This is a 6-point question or a 6-mark question. So you can put up 3 marks why it might and another 3 marks on why it might not. I'm going to tell you all the possible answers for this. So we're gonna have up to 4 marks for why it might. It will increase cost of production, plus 1 mark. Increase the price of products, another mark. This may reduce spending and demand, that's another mark. Lower spending may reduce output or revenue. Another mark. Lower output may reduce demand for workers. Another mark. To maintain profits, firms may seek to lower costs. Another mark. They may achieve this by dismissing workers. This is another mark. And here's 4 marks for why it might not. It will depend on what the government does with the tax revenue. If it spends all of it, the level of demand would be unchanged, may even be higher. Spending on education and healthcare could make people more employable. That's 3 marks in total already. Other costs of production may fall, leaving the price of products unchanged. That's 2 marks. Another answer is firms may absorb the higher rate, leaving the price of products unchanged. Firms are more likely to leave the price the same if demand is elastic. If demand is inelastic, a rise in price will have less impact on demand and so on output and employment. That's 3 marks in total already. Okay, now moving to the next question. Analyze how increased productivity and greater entrepreneurship could help an economy to get out of recession. This is again a 6-mark question. So we can do 3 on increased productivity and another 3 on great entrepreneurship. But I'm just going to tell you all of the possible answers. An increase in productivity, defined as output per factor per period of time, means that more could be produced from a given set of factors, and this can contribute to an increase in output and economic growth. That's up to 3 marks. It can lower costs of production, reduce prices, increase demand. This may encourage firms to produce more due to high profits. That's again another 3 mark, up to 3 marks. Here's another 4 marks on greater entrepreneurship. Greater entrepreneurship, defined as the ability to take crucial decisions, to take risks, organize the other factors, could lead to the development and innovation, and this could lead to new or better products. It can also increase demand, and this could contribute to an increase in output and economic growth. But because this is Cambridge, a less likely response can only be given a maximum of 3 marks. On to the next question again. Explain why scarcity gives rise to an opportunity cost. This time is actually a 4-mark question. But again, we're going to tell you all the possible answers. So, 1 mark for explanation of the term scarcity in terms of the finite resources. 1 mark for insufficient resources to satisfy the unlimited wants. 1 mark for stating that this gives rise to the need to make a choice. 1 mark for stating that this choice will involve an opportunity cost in terms of the next best alternative that is foregone. So on another question. Money, central banks and commercial banks all play a key role in economies. Explain how well money performs its functions as a medium of exchange. This is a 5-mark question, but again, we're gonna show you all the possible answers for this. I can answer up to 3 marks on general performance. The advantage of money over barter, such as it does not require a double coincidence of wants. That's 2 marks already. This function will depend on the degree of scarcity, probability, durability, or divisibility of money, and that's up to 2 marks already. Up to 2 marks on how well it performs this function. Example, money performs this function very well because it is so advantageous compared to barter, that there is a universal acceptability in all parts of the country. Money is generally acceptable. A high rate of inflation, that's already 2 marks, a high rate of inflation will affect its purchasing power, and this could contribute to making it less acceptable.